Dereck Lively, favored around these parts. What stood out or most impressed you about what he did as a rookie in Dallas?
Well, I need to have a bit of a mea culpa because on last year's podcast, I was like, we're not here to talk about Dereck Lively. We're here to talk about Olivier Maxence-Prosper. And I was wrong. Lively is like an ever-evolving Pokemon, and I have no idea what his final form is going to be, but everyone should be very, very afraid. He is so big because he's 7'2" and 240. Like he outweighs Chet Holmgren by 25 pounds, and that matters over the course of the series. In particular, you just wear a guy out. His evolution as to someone who could, because he couldn't set screens at Summer League in 2023. He comes in, he plays almost immediately. He doesn't have the foul trouble I would have expected. He had a little bit of, he still only played, 20-ish minutes a game, but he was so wildly impactful. And, I don't know if you remember, I think it was against the Celtics, the one game the Mavericks won where he hit a corner three off like a wild play. And everyone was freaking out. And it's like, this is the future. The Mavericks are basically saying he will never shoot threes for them. But I love watching him operate like a 7'2" Draymond Green. That is what I think his ultimate psychotic, unbelievable ceiling could be if he were to ever reach it. He is so smart on offense and so capable on defense. I just couldn't have picked a better player to play with Luka Doncic. He's amazing.
Is there anything specifically, an area of development or whatever, that you're just tracking or monitoring most closely, like throughout year two? And are we just assuming he'll start now? Like that it's not going to be
so. Yeah. I think the starting is there, but I also think that he's such a team player to where he is willing to sort of do what's best. In terms of areas of improvement, I think it honestly depends on how teams guard Luka.
Okay.
Coming out of the All-Star break last year, the Mavericks lost like 6 of 7. Like I was calling for Kid's head. We were all super pissed. What teams were doing during that time was saying, we are not leaving Luka. We're not sending any help at Luka. Whoever is guarding Luka is going to be on an island. Luka's going to have to score blah, blah, blah points in order for the Mavericks to win. And they just kept coming up short. It's very similar to how the Celtics guarded them in the finals, but they were much better designed as a team for it. I think Luka likes being double teamed. And when Luka likes being double teamed, he likes finding the roll man. And if Luka gets doubled a lot, Lively and operating out of that short roll is the thing that I am most excited to watch, because against the Thunder, he had a couple of plays where you could see the light starting to turn on, where he realized that, yes, I am 7'2" and can take one power dribble and finish with either hand, because he's that kind of finisher. He's really skilled with both hands. Or I can roll and find somebody cutting to the short corner for a dunk, or hit somebody in the corner for a three. He's really that kind of guy. So I'm very interested to see how he plays as sort of a secondary playmaker, given how pick and roll heavy the Mavericks are.
And last year, it sort of seemed like, after the trade deadline, of course, that there was either, I don't say like a dead even minute split, because I know Lively, I think he averaged under 20 minutes per game when he came back from that injury, like before the regular season was out. Like, how did we see the secondary big man rotation working this year? Is it like we're going to heavily skew it towards Lively's minutes, or could there be more of a dead even split? Or even are we still trying to make a Maxi Kleber happen as a primary big? Do you maybe get weird for a few minutes a game? Not weird, but do you put PJ at the 5 for a couple of minutes, or is it just like, oh, go ahead.
I really hope they get weird and try different stuff, but I bet they still go for sort of a 50-50 split.
Okay.
Because you know how coaches get when guys get that third foul or even that second foul, they get a little skittish and they immediately go to their bench guy. And when you're very confident in your bench guy, you don't really hate that as a fan of a given team, because it's just, you never know what you're going to get out of those guys. I bet if they're drawing up their minutes blocks and you got, what is it? So it's 48 minutes times 5, like however many, you got 48 center minutes. I bet you probably try to go for 28 for Lively and 20 for the other center. But then, they do have Maxi Kleber, who is an odd big. That guy, if he plays 10 minutes a game for the Mavericks, I think they're in good shape. He's a really helpful, he's a really good help defender, but not a great rim protector. I do hope they do some funky stuff with their sizing and play PJ at the 5 sometimes, just because why not? Like, let's see what you have in terms of both offense and defense. But that's what should happen, at least on paper.
I missed on the Daniel Gafford acquisition in the sense of some of my concerns came to bear in the playoffs, but I need to place better weight in as a regular season, like high end minutes eater, excuse me. Like that is a dude that just flat out works. And like you mentioned, like sort of the vertical athleticism is huge for them. And so that was just, he really impressed me with that. And like having him for a full year, that I feel like at least makes life a lot easier on Lively in the sense that you're even saying the plan shouldn't be, you don't need him to play 30 minutes a game is my point, because you have someone who's as good as Daniel Gafford, and maybe he's more likely to run into matchup issues, but that's just another thing that you don't need to care about as often in the regular season.
Yep. And that's what I'm sort of hoping for too, because Lively also seems to have a penchant for odd injuries. Sometimes that just happens. Like I would argue Kyrie Irving is one of those guys where it's like you don't want to call him injury prone, but weird stuff seems to happen. Like Lively getting, it felt like if Lively were 30 instead of 20, I think Karl Towns might have ended his career with that knee to the back of the head. But instead, because he's like a 20-year-old made out of beef jerky, he just like stands up, shakes it off, and is back in the next game. And it's like, okay, sure. So I don't know, but it's having a solid series of bigs is such an odd place for me to be as a Mavericks fan, because I've endured has-beens or truly awful centers for such a long time where it's like, Mark let Tyson Chandler go after 1 year. And so to get a guy who feels like an evolutionary version of Tyson is really fun.
PJ Washington is fascinating to me. It feels like what is your level of trust just in the role that they're going to want him to assume? Like, do you trust him more to be like, the best non-big defender, or do you trust more of what they need from him on offense, which is, and we saw he kind of was all over the place at points. Like he was hitting his threes, he was missing his threes. Can he be someone who attacks closeouts? Can he be someone that punishes mismatches? What is your level of trust in him consistently filling that, like, I guess the different spots that the Mavericks need him to fill?
Like, if the Mavericks have a weakness, this is the one, because he's a 4 that they occasionally want to masquerade as a 3. And I'm not sure he's that great at it. And he's why I am high on him is because he's such a bundle of attributes, but things wax and wane with him in a real way. I made the joke repeatedly after they got him that he needed LASIK, because when he misses shots, it's like, is there a breeze in the building? Like, what were you looking at, my guy? And then against the Celtics, it really came out against the Celtics, which maybe isn't fair, but it's a criticism that exists. He has a terrible handle. And with the way the Mavericks play, if you're going to be a release valve, you have to be confident in putting the ball on the floor. You just have to be. And that's, where, the Mavericks have an assistant coach in God Shamgod, where you hope that he just sort of put him through Shamgod camp for the summer, and he comes out with just a slightly better, just a slightly better handle, because he's got a really interesting package. He's got an odd floater game that really works from like that 5 to 9 foot range, where it's like, how did that ugly thing go in? But the 3-point shot comes and goes in such wild swings. At the moment, I don't particularly trust him, but it's a level. It's like, I don't trust him compared to Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, and Klay Thompson. Like, it's kind of a luxury, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it sounds like I was overweighting it, because I didn't look at Klay necessarily as the guy to kind of fill in the spot of, the third guy in the primary lineup who can dribble or like attack in those situations. And I viewed it more as like PJ Washington, I feel like, needs to be that guy, because it feels like he'll be working with more space, but it does sound like you might be higher on Klay Thompson being able to fill in those gaps.
Yes. I mean, I think I'm just still, instead of being so worried coming into the season about different elements where they're short, because Mavericks in 2022-23 looked so dead in the water, and then they just came back and so I'm still just sort of living on a high, and I've not yet written down all of my like concern points, and that'll happen soon enough though, because I guess the season is sneaking up on us.
Well, I think what's also big too is like, to me, they at least feel better from a talent perspective, where I don't think they compromised their defense, but I think they got a lot more versatile on offense, even if the third ball handler, third attacker is still, like, it was a concern they were working with last year, and they went pretty far, as it turns out.